Third-year player and Minnesota Vikings tight end Irv Smith Jr. underwent surgery to repair his meniscus yesterday morning, and with a 4 to 5 month recovery timeline, it is most likely going to end his 2021 season prematurely before it ever got started. Now, Irv's expectations heading into the 2021 season from not only Vikings coaches and fans, but from everyone really was for him to take the next step, with veteran tight end Kyle Rudolph being released this offseason, and everyone, fantasy expectations were through the roof for Irv, as a lot of fantasy analysts out there expected Irv to take the next step, and really thought he could have a 50 catch to 600 or 700 yard season and 7 to 9 touchdowns, and without the Minnesota Vikings having a clear and true wide receiver number 3 on the roster, it was thought by many that Irv would fill this void, and unfortunately now, as we know, he will more than likely, unless the Vikings make a deep playoff run, not be able to fill the void in the 2021 season. And in today's video, we will be discussing what the Minnesota Vikings will look like without Irv Smith in 2021, who, as we said, was expected to take the next step. This was going to be a critical year for Irv in his career, because he is entering year 3 of year 4 on his contract, and had Irv balled out in 2021, like many, myself included, expected him to, then he could have been in line for a very solid payday before the 2022 season even began. Unfortunately, we now know that's not a reality for him, and we are going to discuss what is the current status for the Vikings 2021 season regarding the tight end position. And despite Irv being done for the year, I'm going to be as direct as I can when I say this. The Vikings are not all of a sudden doomed, and their chances of making a deep playoff run in what we presume to be an all-or-nothing 2021 season is over, because that is most certainly not the case. Had this been a Justin Jefferson or Adam Thielen, I would be very much more concerned with their chances, but the reality of the situation is Irv Smith in his first 2 years has 66 career receptions and 7 touchdowns. Certainly not bad production to scoff at or to take for granted, but on the same side of the coin, it most certainly is not Travis Kelce production, and it is most certainly not time to hit the panic button in Minnesota. They have a veteran tight end who not a lot of people know about in Tyler Conklin, who in his own rights is entering a contract year, and all things considered, Tyler's not that bad of a player. And I fully realize saying this, he has just 32 career receptions for 329 career yards, but what I want to highlight is the final 4 games of the 2020 season. During these final 4 games, Kyle Rudolph was hurt, meaning someone had to step up and get targets, and both Irv and Tyler Conklin did that, as Rudolph wasn't a 9 to target a game player, but there were certainly times where Kirk would look his way more often than not, and during this 4-game span, Tyler did step up. He had 21 targets for an average of 5.25 per game, and hauled in 15 receptions for 168 yards and a score, which in an offense with Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, and Adam Thielen, of course, and sharing some of those targets with Irv Smith Jr., certainly is not bad production for Conklin in this situation, to say the least. And those 15 catches, 168 and a touchdown, translates to, as you can see, a 60 catch, 672 yard season, which very much would be similar to what a wide receiver 3 would produce in this offense. A point that should be made for not only replacing Irv Smith and the production he would have this year, but for the next 2 seasons in Minnesota and before Adam Thielen turns 33 years old, is a tight end does not need to be a game-breaking player and a player teams fear and scheme around in this offense. Would the Vikings deny or not want a player like George Kittle, Travis Kelce, or Darren Waller on their team? No, and no team is going to say, we're good, we don't want a top 3 or 4 player at their position because we're content with what we have. Even the Chiefs would take a Kittle or Waller on their team if it was handed to them, despite having all of the weapons that they do. And how this relates to the Vikings and why I brought those players up is a tight end does not need to be those guys in this offense. When a team has a running back like a Dalvin Cook, an absolute phenom like Justin Jefferson, and a red zone threat and a player who has 20 touchdowns in his last 21 healthy games in Adam Thielen, well, simply put, there's only one ball to go around, and another elite playmaker is not needed, and for that reason, the loss of Irv Smith Jr. is not the end of the world in Minnesota. Now, earlier in the video, I said it was a Super Bowl or bust year for the Vikings, and if you're not a Vikings fan and like to make Kirk Cousins jokes and memes on Twitter.com, then you may have rolled your eyes at the thought of this, but this is the way the Vikings and their fan base are thinking heading into the season. They went 7-9 in 2020 with a defense that was absolutely atrocious, and some of the players from that team are no longer in the Twin Cities. This offseason, they improved the defensive side of the ball big time by adding key pieces like Patrick Peterson, Dalvin Tomlinson, and getting Michael Pierce back, who opted out for the 2020 season. So not only are they getting those three players back, but four-time Pro Bowl linebacker Anthony Barr missed 14 games last year, and pass rusher Danielle Hunter missed the entire 2020 season. Oh, and by the way, all Danielle Hunter has done in his career is be the youngest player to reach 50 sacks and be named a two-time Pro Bowler in only 4 years starting. The difference of 5 players on a defense and 5 quality starters at that is going to make a world of difference, and this team will go from getting laughed at on Christmas Day for giving up 6 rushing touchdowns to Alvin Kamara to a defense that teams simply won't run the ball on because of having Michael Pierce and Dalvin Tomlinson clogging up the middle. Opposing offensive lines will certainly struggle to move nearly 700 pounds of mass up front, and with the space that those two will occupy, I would expect a player who also missed 5 games in 2020 and a player I did not mention yet to have a huge 2021 season, and that is middle linebacker Eric Kendricks. Kendricks is a prototypical linebacker franchises love to have in today's game for several reasons. He's smart, he's instinctive, he's fast, and he rarely misses tackles. So when looking at this roster at the end of the 2020 season and the start of the 2021 season, you go from having backup level players at your starting positions to good veterans, and in some cases like Eric Anthony and Danielle, and really Patrick Peterson for that matter, Pro Bowl level players that weren't there in 2020, and at times last year it most definitely showed. So while Irv Smith's injury isn't an ideal start to the 2021 season for the Minnesota Vikings, it could be a lot worse than what it is currently. Tyler Conklin is in a contract year, and as we know, if a player will ever perform, it would certainly be in a contract year. And while Irv had a lot of potential for the 2021 season, and can still very much come back and be a productive player in 2022, given he will be just 24 years old next year, this is ultimately a player who has 66 catches over the past 2 years and is not a multiple-time Pro Bowl player like the Vikings had to replace several times during the 2020 season. Injuries will come and go for every NFL team, as it is a part of football, and if there is a silver lining in all of this for the Vikings, it is that this injury occurred well over a week before their first game, and everyone is aware of the situation and knows what they have to do to step up for what Irv was going to be in the 2021 season, and Tyler Conklin will do exactly that. Now, with that being said, that's all I have for today's video, and at this point, if you enjoyed, I ask that you like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it would mean the world, and it would also help the growth of the channel, and that would mean a lot to me. So anyways, until next time, have a great day. Love you guys. Deuces. Peace. Skol.